Hello, everyone. Welcome to this class. My name is Kelly Wayment, and I am here at the Silhouette Studio in Utah. And I am excited about today's project and what I get to talk about. We're kind of highlighting the Cameo 5 ES mat, the electrostatic mat. And if you haven't seen it in action, you're going to be impressed. Before I saw the electrostatic mat working, I just didn't understand how it was going to go, but it is one of my favorite tools now. So I'm excited to share that with you. And I picked a project that would be a fun way to highlight that, highlight the mat. So we're going to cut the pieces for this shaker card. We're going to make this shaker card, and some of the confetti that goes inside the shaker card is going to be cut with the ES mat because it's so easy to cut and weed little tiny things. So let's talk about our supplies that we're going to use for this project. So let's start with we'll start with the machine. So I'm going to use the Cameo 5 today. You absolutely could use the Portrait 4 and the Portrait 4 ES mat with this, but I'm using the Cameo 5. That's my favorite machine. This one is the pink, and it's just a super cute color. And of course, for Valentine's Day, we're using pink. So Cameo 5 and ES mat, and I'll show you how to work that in just a little bit. As far as paper, because this is an easy paper project, we're just using cardstock and lightweight paper. So I've just chosen the red pack and the pink pack, the 65-pound Michaels Recollections paper. This is my favorite cardstock. I have so many of these color packs that I buy from Michaels, and when I use too much of one color or go through the whole thing, I just pop over to Michaels and get some more. And so that's the 65-pound. I love it with the Cameo 5. The other thing, I've actually discovered this kind of recently, although I think it's been around for a while, is the Recollections 24-pound paper. So this is a lightweight paper. It's more of a copy paper type weight. And what this is here for, I've got the neutrals pack. Yeah, the neutrals pack. And that has white, black, cream, kind of a khaki, and a gray. And I've been using the white, and we'll use the white from that pack today. So it's a nice, really smooth 24-pound. It's nice. We'll also need, let's see, so I've got some pinks and reds, and I've actually taken, for the pink paper, for the card, I've actually taken a full piece of 8.5 by 11 pink paper, and I've just cut it apart with a paper trimmer. So the pattern for this design, you can actually cut out one card base on a letter size sheet that'll have the perforation marks, but if you want to get two out of a sheet, then it's easier to just use a paper trimmer and cut it in half, and then we'll fold it. And then I've just got some pattern paper scraps. So a couple of pattern papers that I like. And so we'll pick one of these when it comes time to choose. That's going to be in the background, mostly covered by confetti, but that pattern paper is a nice little extra bit of depth to the card itself. You can absolutely do that with a plain cardstock backing, but I like the pattern paper. Oops. Okay, so that's for paper. Oh, also for pattern paper, if you have little 6x6 pattern papers and you never know what to do with them, like me, this is a great project for using those little 6x6 pads of pattern paper. And so any pattern paper you want. We are also going to use acetate. So this is going to be a clear layer to hold that glitter and confetti inside the card. And so Recollections, also Michael's product, has clear acetate, and this comes in a 6x6 pack or a 12x12, and so you can use either. I've just grabbed the 6x6 because we can divide that equally for a 3x3 inch square. For shaker cards, for all shaker cards, you need some type of dimensional foam, and this is Recollections double-sided foam tape. This one is the 1/4 inch width, and this is an important part of making a shaker card. And then besides the confetti that we're going to cut, I've also got some chunky glitter. I thought this one was fun. It's the Creatology. Okay, I'm old. I need my glasses. Okay, it's a Creatology shaped glitter. So I've seen a lot of different things that people will put in their shaker cards, and I thought this shaped glitter that I got from Michael's just off the shelf was really fun because it's got various thicknesses and different shapes in it. It's got some stars and some hexagons and then tiny little glitter that you're used to. So that is a fun glitter. But I have seen people use fine glitter, chunky glitter, even cake sprinkles. So you can put sprinkles, anything kind of textured and dimensional is a fun thing to put in your shaker card. So you can absolutely experiment with that. We'll need a pair of scissors because we're going to be cutting the foam tape, and then you'll need some sort of adhesive. I like glue, a craft glue in a fine tip nozzle with a fine tip nozzle. And so that's what I'm using today, just because the areas we're going to be gluing have kind of skinny little areas. You can try and use an adhesive roller, but the tiny glue nozzle I just like better. Okay, so I think that's all we need as far as talking about supplies. And so let's go ahead and talk about setting up the electrostatic mat. So this is your Cameo 5, and the electrostatic mat is a separate purchase. So when you buy the Cameo 5, it doesn't come with the electrostatic mat, but once you have it, you're going to use it a lot, especially if you do paper crafts. I just love it. So what you do to get that installed is there's a little front shield that you'll pull off of the front of the little lower front of your Cameo machine, and that exposes a little electronic terminal. And so that matches with this little electronic terminal here on the mat. And so you're just lining that up. Hard to do it backwards. Also, your rollers, are going to line up on this side. There's a roller space on either side of the mat. So when you get that lined up, it's just going to pop in there. You're pressing it in, and these two little corner pieces are going to pop up so you know it's locked in place. And you'll be able to actually push the button and turn it on and make sure that it's got power. So it doesn't need any plugs or anything. It's got that little electronic port that connects, and that's how it gets power, is straight from the Cameo 5 machine. And that's one of the reasons why I've had people ask if the electrostatic mat can work with older Cameo machines, older portrait machines, and they can't because that technology is built into the newest machines. So the Cameo 5 and the Portrait 4 have that little port to give it power. Okay, so let's grab. Do we have any questions before we dive in? Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen, and we will start talking about how to make this with the software. All right, so I have Silhouette Studio open here, and this is Silhouette Studio version 5. So if you are familiar with Silhouette Studio version 4, if you've been using Silhouette Studio for a while, it's not a lot different, but it is, it does have some changes. So we'll go through anything that might be new. So I've got my regular design page open. So here's my tab for design. If you open Silhouette Studio the very first time, you're going to see the Silhouette Studio 5. You're going to see this kind of this screen that will let you see maybe your recent designs, and you can check on what you're going to, it'll give you suggestions if you need help on what you're creating and you need some guided assistance. You can pick a project and it'll help you through it. But for us, I know what I'm doing, so you can just follow me. I'm your guide. All right, so here in the design page, we are going to go to the page setup panel. So this is just your, same as in previous versions, your upper right corner if it doesn't already open up for page setup. And so I've got my machine selected for Cameo 5. And of course, if you're using a Portrait 4 and the electrostatic mat, you would just choose your correct machine here. We can ignore the feed type. The cutting mat is where you tell the machine that you're using the electrostatic mat. So click on the drop-down arrow for cutting mat, and you're going to choose electrostatic mat. And that is so you get everything in the right place, and the machine is prepared to talk to the mat, and you know where to position everything. Now your media size, you can go up to 12 inches by 12 inches. That's the maximum size you can fit on the electrostatic mat. We are using the Recollections paper, so we're using letter size paper. So I'm going to choose my media size as letter. Now you can see that that border has changed from 12 inches to letter size. And so you cannot put anything outside, or the machine won't cut anything outside of this red cut border. So make sure that you can see that. If you can't see your cut border, you can, let's see where it's at. Okay, so if you don't see your cut border, go to your next tab. You've got your regular tab, and then for page setup, and then you've got your grid settings. Right here, you want this box always checked for show cut border, and that way you always know where your space is that you can place your items that you want to be cut. That's a little bit different on Silhouette Studio 5. It used to be down at the bottom on Silhouette Studio version 4. All right, let's go ahead and make sure that cut border is showing. And we'll go ahead and go find our design. So if you have not purchased this design already, you need to get it from the Silhouette Design Store. And the quickest way I found to do that in Silhouette Studio 5 is to go home, and at the very bottom it says click here to visit the design store to view more. And that will open up a web browser, or you can just go to silhouettedesignstore.com. And if you don't have it already, the design is 1239372. And that will find that heart shaker card. So there that is. It's on sale with all the designs right now if you're watching live, and through the month of February. And so you can just add it to your cart and check out. We're not going to go into all of that. We're going to go back to Silhouette Studio, and I'm going to look at the library. And so I've just typed in here, you can see you've got your search bar, and I know what it's called, so I can just type in, it's being a little slow. Okay, heart shaker, and that will find it. So then just double click to open it. and it'll open it on your page. Now, as I mentioned before, the items have to be within your red cut area to cut. And so if you just select those all, just click and drag a selection box and select those and move them off to the side, that means they won't cut. This is just a holding area off to the side. And so you can put everything over there and the machine will ignore it. All right, so I talked about your card base. So this you could put, if you wanted to cut this straight from your electrostatic mat, you would have to rotate it and then position it on the page and then cut it. And you can see, obviously, you can't get two on a letter-sized page if you're cutting it. So that's why I just trim it in advance and then we'll just fold it in half. What I do want to cut is these little red heart frames. So there's one and there's two. You need a top and a base. So we will go ahead and put those on the mat within the red cut border. And we'll go ahead and go over to the Send tab because these are ready to go. And if you've got a guided mode and a standard mode when you're working in Silhouette Studio version 5. And so your guided mode, it's going to scan and find your device. If it doesn't see it, you've got a little rescan for devices. I'm using Bluetooth and I've already got this one connected. And so I'm just going over to standard. You can do guided mode. And then you just follow the instructions and keep continuing and continuing, and it'll do it what you need and help you through it. But I know what I'm doing. So we're going to standard mode. This says that it's ready. It's just ready for me to load the media. So we'll go ahead and set our tool settings. So tool holder 1, we'll click on that tab. And this Recollections 65-pound cardstock, I actually like using the pattern paper 65 pounds. So in the little search bar, I'm just going to start typing pattern paper, and I want this one that says medium 65 pound. And it's planning on cutting, and it's got my Autoblade detected, so that's all good. So I'm just going to double check to make sure I expect these are set as I expect. So the force is at 30. The speed is at 5, my blade depth is 3, and it's going to do 1 pass, and that is exactly what I want. So we could do a test cut if we want to. I'm going to skip that part because I did a test earlier. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we'll get this paper loaded. So this is actually not a full sheet. I cut a little bit off earlier, but I know I'm cutting in the top area here. And so I'm just going to line up. If you have an electrostatic mat, it should have a little white or dark mark, depending on what color of ES mat you have. And so you're going to line up the top of your paper with that mark. And then the left edge of your paper, you're going to line up with the edge of the mat. And then just kind of hold it in place and turn the power button on. And sometimes that will, especially if you've just barely put on a fresh or have moved your protector sheet, always use your protector sheet. It comes with the machine, and you can buy new protector sheets when that wears out. But just kind of smooth it down a little bit so you don't have any bubbles in your paper or on the little protector sheet itself. And at this point, you can see that my paper is not moving. I have, yeah, it's got that electrostatic charge. So it's gripping it in place with nothing sticky to hold it. Now to load it, we'll just press from the bottom and then press our load button. And I will usually give it a little bit of pressure from behind as I'm pressing the load button, just to make sure those rollers grip it. And so now it's ready to cut. And I want to make sure that the area behind the machine also is clear enough so as the mat, just like with a regular cutting mat, it's going to feed through and you need to not have anything blocking it from behind. So that is ready to go. And I'm just going to press my send button, and it's going to remind me that I need to be using that paper on the electrostatic tray, and I have my Autoblade in, and that's all good, so I'm going to press send. So it's cutting out those little shapes for that little red heart frame, and everything is staying in place because of that electrostatic charge. All right, so once that's done, we still press the unload button, just like with the regular cutting mat, and then finish pulling it out. And then I'm going to turn that off so I can actually peel my paper off of there easily. And so just find a corner, and that just lifts right away. And I've got my two heart frame pieces that I need. And then the rest, I will usually bring my mat over, or my protector sheet over to the side, so I can just slide it off. And that weeding is done. Isn't that awesome? Okay, so I'm going to put my electrostatic protector sheet back in place. We're going to be doing a pattern paper next. I think I'm going to go with this cute little kind of a square looking. And so I'll press my electrostatic charge again. This is a scrap. I know I only needed about a little bit more than 3 inches by 3 inches. Okay, so that is in place. So let's go back to the software. Okay, so there's the pieces we just cut. And we're going to go back to the design tab and select these, move them off to the side. And then I've got a couple more squares here. One is represents my acetate, the clear piece, and then this one represents the pattern paper. So I'm just going to bring it over and go to my send tab, and the same settings should work. That's reminding me I need to load the media, which I just showed you before. I'm just pushing it in and pressing the load button, and I'm going to click send and send again. All right, let's see if that worked. Unload, pull it all the way out. And yep, that worked. The most, well, that I was using the pattern paper setting, which works really well on kind of a thicker pattern paper. So that is done. And so now we could cut out the acetate sheets from with the mat. And I will tell you that since these are 6 by 6 and the design itself, excuse me for a second, it's got a perforated line, a little noisy. These are 6 by 6 and the design itself needs them exactly 3 by 3. So I could cut these on the electrostatic mat or regular cutting mat. I don't know how well you can see this. This was a different design I was working on. Okay, you can see a little bit of reflection there. Okay. It cuts on that same setting, that pattern paper of blade 3, force 30, speed 5, but I do a double pass. And that I have found cuts this acetate really well. So just the same pattern paper settings, but with a double pass, so it cuts it twice. We're going to save a little time and save a little material by making this, just cutting it with the paper trimmer 3 inches by 3 inches. So you can cut it with the Cameo. We'll save ourselves some time, and we'll move on to the lightweight paper for our confetti. So this is that 24-pound Recollections paper, and you can see I already cut some rows earlier. I'm just going to use that same sheet. Oops, that's still on. Use that same sheet because I'm just going to cut at the top. I'll turn that on again. And your mat will stay on for quite a long time. I'm trying to remember. I think it might time out after. No, it's a different. I don't think it does time out. I think it'll stay on as long as you have it on. If it were to time out, it would be something long, like 30 minutes of inactivity. But I don't think this one times out. So I've got that smoothed down and it's turned on. It's not going anywhere. So I'm going to load it. And we will go back to the software. All right, so again, back to the design page. And I will move this pattern paper piece off to the side. So now what I've got are these little hearts. We're going to make some confetti. So if I bring it onto my page and I want to cut, you might want to cut your whole page with it. So what you can do is go to your panel that says transform panel over here on the right. Looks like 3 rectangles lined up with each other. And oops, nope, I want the replicate, sorry. It looks like a bunch of overlapped oblong pointed ovals. And I'm just going to choose fill page. So I've got those selected, and if I choose fill page, it's going to fill up my whole page with those hearts. And then I don't need that many. You might want to cut all of those. I don't want to, so I'm just going to delete to save some time. And I might move those down just a little bit. Okay, so that's probably enough confetti for one card. And so those are ready to go too. So I'm going into the send panel. And they're showing bold red, same as all the others. That was good. That works. So this material I'm choosing, I'm going to click the drop down and I want paper. I'm going to delete my little search button. I want paper. I want copy paper medium. There's actually 2 of them. I'm going to go with the lower one and double check that my settings are what I want. I want my blade depth on 2. I think that the other copy paper one has a blade depth on 3. That's just way too heavy, too deep. So you want your blade depth of 2. And then I've got my force set to 15 at the default, and the speed is 10 and a single pass. And that actually works well for me. We could do a little test cut just to make sure. If you click generate test shape, you can actually move where that shape is and you can cut it wherever you want. So if I were to say send test, that would test cut that. little shape. I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm going to say remove test shape. I already tested this earlier. Okay, so this is ready to go. And I did load it. So I'm going to click send and it'll cut out my little heart confetti. All right, so while that is going, we can go ahead and get started doing the assembly of the card. All right, so I'm going to grab one of these little half sheets and just fold it in half. If you want, you can use a bone folder or something. I actually use my Silhouette scraper tool to put that nice crease on there. And so there I've got my card front. And you can actually, you can see that you can choose either a horizontal or a vertical orientation. Let's go ahead and let's do horizontal this time because we did vertical before. And I'm also going to grab my sample here to make sure I'm doing it right. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the pattern paper and we're going to glue it to the back side of one of these heart frames. You can see it's a little bit smaller than the frame itself. And so here's where I'm going to get out my white glue and just make sure that's going to catch all of that paper. And I am going to go ahead and do that inside heart as well. So glue that on to one of the pieces, and you're not going to see this, so it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. And then we can get the other one ready with the acetate. So these are going to layer together, and then they're going to have that foam in between. So the acetate, we're going to glue to the back side, so you're seeing that glossy peeking through as like a window. So also use the white glue. And it does stick to the acetate, at least this glue that I'm using. Stick that on. And that little bit that got on there can just be cleaned up with like a little wet Q-tip. Scraped away with the fingernail. Trying not to get too much glue on the acetate itself. Okay, but so we've got our two sides. And so now we just need to put our foam. Our foam is going to be there both to pop it up between the layers, so you've got room for the glitter to shake. And it's also going to contain that glitter. So we need every bit of this sealed off. So we'll get out a little roll of foam adhesive, and you can use thicker. I found this roll to be just nice. And so and it's really sticky. So we're just going to place that on there. We don't want it to be poking through. To see it on the other side. So if you need to peel it back a little bit and trim a little bit more. And I'm going to leave the, it has a backing. It's got a sticky layer that's sticking itself on the roll. And then it's got a backing that makes only one side sticky for now. We're going to leave that backing in place until later. So at this point, we are just getting that stuck on there. Okay, so we've got those. We'll keep going with this border here. So you don't want there to be any gap. If you can avoid it. So we don't want any glitter to escape. I may have left too much of a gap there, so I think I'm going to try and fill that with just a little bit of glue, so it doesn't, so no glitter escapes that one. I need to press it better this time up against that side that's already there. All right, now you could just do those 4 sides if you wanted to, but on this card, I actually divided that. So these little segments have their own little bit of glitter. And so I go trim that a little bit. Okay, what's our question? Okay, so the question is, what are the settings for cutting the acetate? And that I use pattern paper or cardstock settings, but I will do my blade on 3, my force on 30, my speed on 5, and those are what I typically cut the Recollections 65 pound. But then for the acetate, I'm going to also make that a double pass. So where it gives you selection for number of passes, you just say 2. So it's almost the same as cardstock, but we just do 2 passes. And that seems to cut the acetate nicely. Okay, one more little strip here. And you might need to clean your scissors a little bit with an adhesive remover after this is done, because it's really sticky foam tape. All right, so the curve is just too much trouble to bother with, and you still get a fun effect with just that section and these 2 sections. And so I'm not going to worry about adding any foam up there. I think that this effect is going to be good enough for us. All right, so now we're going to add, Don't throw your project on the floor. We're going to add our confetti and our glitter. So back over here to our electrostatic mat, we can unload that. Woo, didn't like that. Okay, so I'm leaving that electrostatic mat actually turned on right now because these little pieces will stick better instead of falling away. And you can see all those tiny little hearts just are staying there on the mat. And now I'll turn it off and I can collect those. And I'm just going to put them straight into my shaker card. So I'm going to go with some tweezers to help me out here. Just going to throw some in there. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of a residual static charge. So any way you want to collect those, and we've got those 3 sections. We don't want anything to stick to the foam. Okay, so you can be really perfectionist about it and make sure there's the same number in each section. I'm not going to worry about that this time. And that looks good enough. So I'll move those away from the foam so when I take that backing layer off, they won't try and stick to it immediately. And then here's where you can also add little sprinkles or your chunky glitter or any type of tiny filler that you want. And I discovered that chunky glitter is every bit as messy as fine glitter. So we will just tap a little bit in there. It doesn't need a ton. And then I want to make sure that there's nothing on those foam pieces or the backing for the foam pieces. So carefully, carefully peel away your backing pieces. Because we don't want our little fillers to stick to that before we get the lid put on. So I didn't realize until recently how easy shaker cards were. Whoop. Just got the glitter on there. This is actually the hardest part, is trying to get the glitter not to stick to the foam before you get the other piece on there that holds it in place. My tweezers might be helpful again here. Try not to stick my fingers onto the foam that's already exposed because that'll make it all go flying. Okay, so all that foam is exposed. I'm not going to worry about those couple little pieces. So now we're just going to put this with the acetate side down, the nice side facing up. We're just going to place it down right on top and press it really well against the foam that's there. So then when you give it a shake, you can see that that shakes really, really fun. And like I said, you can put your card vertically or horizontally. This is really fun. You don't even have to attach it to a card. You could write something on the back and just give it to somebody in its little contained shaker. I don't know, you call it a shaker box right now. You could add it to a box. There's a lot of things you can do with it. So you can see how you could actually design that yourself even. But we are going to put it on a card because that is easy, and Valentine's Day is coming up. So I can use my glue again. I might use my adhesive this time just because it's less messy. All right, so there we have our shaker card. And do we have any questions? Because I think that's about where we're at. It's such an easy project. So you can see how that would be fun to make a bunch of those, and they can be in different Valentine colors. You can add different colors of glitter. It's really customizable, and you can find other shapes in the design store that you think might work. You might want to do a search that says frame. I know there's some objects that say frame, and so you're just cutting two of the same thing. As long as you can have foam seal that off and stick glitter in there, you can turn a lot of shapes into a shaker card. So hopefully you thought that was fun. And did we have any questions about the electrostatic mat? Anything about the software? Okay, well, thanks for joining me, and have a happy Valentine's Day.